Looks like he's thinking. What are you thinking about? What are you thinking about? Oh, bless you. Bless you. Bless you. Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Today I want to share my birth story with my second baby. He is 5 weeks old. I had a little boy. His due date was July 19th, and in the days leading up to that date, I had a lot of people at work ask me, you know, when's the baby due? When am I going on maternity leave? And I kept telling them that it's like in a few days, and I had my maternity leave date set to start on his due date. People would always ask me how I felt about it, and I didn't like the idea of being on maternity leave with no baby. My daughter was born 10 days early, and here it is like 3 days before his due date, and like he's still not here. I was even praying every night that he would be here and that he'd come before his due date, or even on his due date. I didn't want him to go over. So July 18th, I went to work, and I was having a lot of contractions, and I started writing down on a piece of paper when I was getting contractions, like what time. And then on my break, I was, you know, calculating how long in between each one, and it was always like 20 minutes. So it seemed like I was getting them frequently, but in reality, I wasn't really. And then also, I was only getting them while I was working. I wasn't getting them like during my break, and it went on all day. They didn't stop the whole 7 hours of my shift. I kept having contractions, so you know, I just thought it was just being on my feet. Well, I got off at 7:30 and I picked up stuff to make spaghetti, checked out, went home. Right as soon as I got home at 8 o'clock, the contractions started happening again, but they were every 4 minutes apart. And the entire time I'm making dinner, my boyfriend, I'm telling him when I'm getting them. He got to the point, he's like, these are pretty frequent, like these are pretty regular. He's like, are you in labor? And I was like, no, I don't think so. My first birth, my water broke. So I don't know the experience of going into labor spontaneously. So I didn't know if this was it or not. And they were starting to get more intense and starting hurting really bad. And so I'm in the middle of making dinner, and I would have to stop everything I'm doing and just really breathe and relax my whole body. So they were frequent, there was a pattern to them, pain increasing in intensity. And so finally at 8:30, I was like, I'm not sure if this is it, but I think we need to pack the bags just in case. I pretty much already had my bag packed, but he didn't have his, and we also didn't have Amelia's bag packed. So I finished dinner, he's, you know, getting the bags ready, he's jumping in the shower. It was the night before his due date, and I kept hoping that it was it, but I really didn't know, because my Braxton Hicks can be like this. My Braxton Hicks could be very frequent. There'll be a pattern to them. They'll increase in intensity, and they'll, you know, increase, and then all of a sudden it'll just stop. I sit down to eat dinner around 9 o'clock, and they kind of stop. And so I kind of got a little disappointed, because I was like, I really wanted this to be it, but now like I just don't think so. I called the birthing center and told them what was going on, and they said it could be a false alarm, but they said with this being my second baby and being so far away from the hospital we gave birth at was like an hour away from us. And so she's like, you'll probably have the baby a lot quicker. She just said it would just be best to go ahead and come in. My boyfriend called my mom to see if she could watch Amelia. So we met my mom at a gas station to give her Amelia. At this point, it's maybe like 10 o'clock at night. The contractions were getting really intense, and that was kind of the moment where we were like, okay, this is really it. After we met my mom, we made our way to the hospital, and on the way to the hospital, it was just getting more intense. I couldn't have my seatbelt touching me. I kept stretching it out. I'm trying to get on my hands and knees, because being on my hands and knees really helps with contractions for me. So I'm trying to get on my hands and knees in the car, and I'm just like really focusing on my breathing, and my boyfriend's like, you're not pushing, are you? Since it was so late, we had to go through the ER entrance, and then a midwife met us there. She brought us back to the birthing unit. And once we got to the hospital, the contractions stopped. They put me in a room. They asked if my water had broken. I said no. Took me up to the fetal monitors. There was no pattern to them anymore. Sometimes I was going 10 minutes without getting one. I was kind of disappointed. I was like, I thought this was it. It's the night before his due date, and they've stopped. we're just gonna be sent home. And after 30 minutes, the nurse came in, she took me off the monitor. She's like, so what do you want to do? She's like, we really don't want to send you home yet because you live so far away. We don't want to send you home just for you to have to come right back. She's like, do you want to get up and walk around and see if that speeds things up at all? When we got there, my dilation was about a 3.5. After the 30 minutes hooked up to the monitors, I was still about a 3.5. So we wait 30 minutes. My boyfriend and I were standing up, we're walking around. I'm doing like deep squats and like really stretching and just really trying to move. I almost didn't stop moving the whole 30 minutes. So she comes back in after 30 minutes and puts me back in the bed, checks my dilation, and she said I'm about a 4.5 to a 5. She said my contractions were still pretty irregular, but she said I'm gonna go out and I'm gonna ask another nurse what they think. She leaves, comes back in, and she says, all right, so we're gonna admit you. So she takes us to her room, get kind of settled in, and she asked if I wanted to get in the shower. I said yes. Rudy leaves to go get our bags in the car, messages my family. She gets the shower set up. She put a birthing ball in the shower and she got the water warm, and then she let me sit in there for about 30 minutes to spray myself off. And that felt really good. That really helped the contractions. After the 30 minutes being in the shower, she put me back on the monitor for another 30 minutes to watch contractions, and sometimes they were really painful, but they were still really spaced apart and not all of them were painful. And so I'm sitting here thinking, I'm just like, this is gonna be a long night. But what if I'm gonna be those people that's in labor for like 2 to 3 days? I'm just like, I just felt like everything was gonna take forever. But yeah, we kept doing that, 30 minutes laying down on the monitor and then 30 minutes letting me get up and walk around, doing whatever I want, getting the shower, whatever. At this point, I think it was like 2 o'clock. And it was really starting to pick up. I'm not sure what I was dilated at this point. They didn't really check me throughout the whole thing. Things are really starting to get intense and I'm having to really focus. Pain's so great, I'm having to like stop everything I'm doing to just breathe and relax as much as I can. At one point I looked at my boyfriend and I was like, I really wish Amelia was here. She was gonna be able to be there, but with all the COVID-19 stuff going on, children aren't allowed in the hospital right now. And the nurse said something like, I know, that's really upsetting. And then Rudy's like, yeah, her mom was gonna be here too. She's like, oh, well, your mother can be here. And I was like, wait, what? Because at first they said nobody besides Rudy could be there. And so we called my mom, told her she could be there. So then my mom was no longer watching Amelia, my sister was. So they kind of switched. Right before my mom got there, I kind of felt something. I pulled my gown up and there was a lot of mucus, but it was a lot of blood also. And I was not expecting that. I looked at Rudy, I was like, is this normal? This didn't happen last time. Right then the nurse came in and she's like, did your water just break? And I was like, I have no idea what's going on right now. There's just a lot of blood. And she looked and she's like, you look like you lost your mucus plug. And I was like, that's what it's like? A lot of people made losing your mucus plug sound like it was just like thick, heavy discharge. But like this was like a lot of blood and a lot of mucus. Like this was a mess. Soon after that, my mom gets there. When my mom got there, that's when it seemed like things really were starting to pick up. My mom walks in, asks me how I'm doing, and I can't even really talk at that point. I kind of need all my focus on getting through these contractions. When I'm in labor or when I'm in really intense pain in general, I can't have anybody talking to me. I can't really carry on a conversation. I'm not one of those people that like to be distracted and talked to. So at this point, I'm still hooked up to the monitors, but I'm able to get out of bed. I'm kind of just like pacing beside the bed, just kind of walking around. And after about 30 minutes, the nurse comes back in and asks if I want to go back into the tub. This time Rudy went back there with me and I'm sitting there and kind of rolling around on the ball and he's spraying me off. This time being in the shower, that's when we knew he was coming very, very soon. There was a lot more pressure down there and it just seemed like he was trying to come out before he was, before I was fully dilated. And then it just got to the point I really just wanted to get out. Boyfriend helped me out, dried me off, helped me to the bed. I really wanted my dilation checked And so they got me in the bed and I had a really intense contraction and I let out like a really loud moan, like involuntarily.
Okay, well I know you're trying to push and that's okay. Just tell me when it's really pushing.
And the nurse is telling me to breathe. She's like, "You're not pushing, are you?" I was like, "No," but I had a really strong urge to. After the contraction passed, she laid me back in the bed to check my dilation, and she said I was at about an 8, and as soon as she checked me I had another contraction. Got on my hands and knees and I'm just trying my hardest to breathe and stay calm, and it went away after about maybe 30 seconds. Shortly after that, I think it was like less than a minute later, she laid me back to check my blood pressure, and then I got another contraction, so I got back up on my hands and knees. After about 10 seconds, I felt a very strong urge to push. Pushing him out was just taking everything out of me. I don't even think I was fully dilated yet too. It's just like he was just trying to just come out like out of nowhere, and like I felt like I had no control over it. Felt another contraction coming, so I got on my hands and knees. I think being on my hands and knees and being up was helping him to come out a lot faster than maybe he should. I think she realized it was time and she got everybody in the room. Before I gave birth, during one of my appointments, my midwife said I can give birth in whatever position I want to, because I asked her if I can be on my hands and knees while I give birth, and she said yes. But when the time actually came, they wanted me to do the traditional lay flat on your back with your legs up sort of thing.
Good, Michaela. Good job.
Overall, I guess it was okay, because it almost seemed like once I was laying down, he wasn't coming out so fast. Pushing him out was a lot harder than my first birth, and it lasted a lot longer with Amelia. I didn't feel any pain or pressure down there, and also she was out within 3 minutes, but this time there was a lot of pain and pressure down there. I was in the pushing stage for like 10 minutes. So my boyfriend was there, my mom was there, my mom was filming, all the nurses and midwives were in there, and then we video chatted my sister. After seemed like what took forever to get him out, he was finally here on his due date. I thought that was really crazy. I'm days before his due date and I'm praying that he won't go over his due date. I labored for 9 hours. Overall, it didn't seem like it was nearly that long. But yeah, childbirth is so intense, but it's such an exhilarating and euphoric experience. It was only after I met my boyfriend that I wanted kids, and so this childbirth is something I thought I would never experience in my life. Just now, the fact that I've gone through it twice, it's just amazing. Giving birth in the middle of a pandemic, I'm glad I didn't have to wear a mask during labor and delivery. I've heard of some women having to, and I just could not imagine having a mask over my face while I'm in the most intense pain of my life. You know, we had to wear a mask like through the hospital, but we didn't have to wear a mask in our actual room. But we were at the hospital for a day. We gave birth on the 19th and we left the 20th. Both of my births were natural. I didn't want any sort of pain management, no epidural, nothing. My last video is actually my tips on how to have a natural birth. Even if you have a low pain threshold, having a natural childbirth is something everybody can do. People have been having babies naturally far longer than epidurals have been around. As for the name, his name is Lucius Von James. Lucius is a name we had picked out for a boy before we were even pregnant. Picking the middle name was very, very hard. We wanted the middle name James after my father, but Rudy also really liked the name Vaughn. So even after we gave birth, we still didn't know what his name was gonna be. The nurse asked us what his name was and I said Lucius. And then I looked at Rudy. I was really nervous. I was like, what's the middle name gonna be? You know, it took us so long to pick out a middle name, and I was telling Rudy I don't want to be at the hospital and still not knowing what his middle name is gonna be, but that ended up happening. I wanted him to have more of the deciding factor for what his name was gonna be, considering I chose Amelia's name. So I was like, well, I like James. We had decided on James a while ago, so that's what I thought it was going to be. I know you like James, but I know that you also really want it to be Vaughn. So I was like, it can be Vaughn if that's what you want. And he said, let's do both. So I was like, okay, well, if we do 2 middle names, it's gonna have to be Vaughn James, because if we do James Vaughn, it just sounds like James Bond. So we did Vaughn James, and it's different, but I do like it. But yep, that's his birth story. If you enjoyed listening to it, I'll see you in another video.